Welcome to another edition of the Christmas Chameleon Cook. I'm going to have to be a bit short and sweet today because I've got house guests coming for Christmas tomorrow, and I'm not going to have the time to do much except entertain and cook, and no time for videos. So today I'm going to talk about mince pies. And I'm going to talk about alternatives to mince pies if you don't have an oven. Because for a long time, when I was living in Buenos Aires, I didn't have an oven. But I do like mince pies at Christmas time, and so I had to find an alternative. And I like to make pies in general. I like to make steak and kidney pie, pork pie, all kinds of different pies. And I had to find an alternative, and I struck upon the idea of making empanadas. Empanadas are like Cornish pasties in Argentina. They're not like Cornish pasties in other parts of South America. In other parts of South America, they look the same shape, but they're not cooked in the same way. In Argentina, empanadas are baked, just like Cornish pasties are baked. But in points further north, they are fried. And so I used to make my empanadas by frying them when I cooked them at home. And I decided this year, that I would make a video on mince pie empanadas just to bring the changes. Now, in Spanish, ita or ito, it normally means little something when it's added to the end. So I didn't make empanadas because they're huge. I made empanaditas, and that's what I want to talk about. And then I'm going to conclude a little bit with whipped cream and the different ways you can flavor whipped cream. So let's get cooking. Now, I'll start by saying that this year I've only made a few mince pies. I may make a few more, probably will. But I make my own mincemeat, and I let it mature for many months. The mincemeat I'm using this year, I've been maturing for about 4 months. And I did make a few mince pies. But then I also decided to make just one big mince pie, mostly for convenience. So there's the first chameleon thing you can invent for yourself if you like, is different shapes, different sizes, but still doing it in the oven, still baking it. But I want to turn from the baked mince pie in the traditional shape to empanaditas. Now you start with short crust pastry, roll it out, and then cut circles. In this case, you can see I cut circles. I actually used a cup to make them. It's about the right size. Made a few circles. Then you daub on some mincemeat, roll it over so that it becomes a half moon, and then you can start frying. Now you can deep fry them, but in my case I shallow fried and I'll show you how that works. Okay, now I'm just going to do the first experimental one and just show you how it works. And have to make sure that the empanada is very well crimped, otherwise the filling will leak out. So let me just go ahead and see what happens. Okay, now the bat's at a good temperature. And when you make these in batches, you really don't want to cook too many at once, because you don't want the cold empanada to cool down the fat that it's cooking in. So just a few, 3 or 4 at a time is quite enough. I'm going to flip this one now. Ah, that looks beautiful. Absolutely perfect. Now that's the idea when you fry them. So now let's just take a look at baking them, because frying is not really the way I do it, although I did in Argentina once or twice when I didn't have an oven. But in Argentina we usually use the oven for empanadas. Now, just for comparison's sake, I did actually bake a couple of empanaditas. Same principle, make a circle of dough, put some mincemeat in the middle, roll it over to form a half circle, and then instead of frying, just put it in a hot oven, bake until golden, and here are my results. Now, what I found when I had my fried empanaditas and my baked empanaditas was that I wasn't terribly satisfied. And I know exactly why, because I always eat mince pies with whipped cream. So I whipped some cream and put the whipped cream on the second one. I'd already eaten the first one, so here's the second one. And it was delicious, but it got me to thinking that there are various ways that you can flavor whipped cream. My normal way is to put a little bit of vanilla essence in it. I used to put sugar in as well, and it does actually assist in the whipping process. I don't put sugar in anymore, but I do usually put in a little vanilla. But then I thought, well, what would the Chameleon cook do? And there are many, many, many choices, and I'll just share 2 of them with you for now. I made a second batch of whipped cream with rose water. Now, rose water, of course, the essence of roses. Turkish Delight is flavored by it in particular. Makes a very different whipped cream. And the last one I tried was orange flower essence. Also just delightful. You don't have to add very much, just tiny, tiny amount, and it perfumes the whole batch of cream. And it's just wonderful and goes very well with whipped cream. So at this point, I'm going to wish you a very Merry Christmas and ask you to tell your friends, as always, and to like and subscribe. And I will see you all again in 2020.